Part 6 of the oil, all other parts down below. She isn't moving in with him. I'm sorry if I gave that impression. She actually has no desire to move out of the city she lives in. That's where we grew up and where we want our son to grow up. From what I've learned, she's been telling him no, it's not going to happen. As well, she'd know that it would limit time with her son cause there's no way in hell I'd let him around my boy, especially after I learned how he is with his kids. The reference of how she's willing to help me move is one part guilt, one part having a choice in where I move because she may be thinking about where she'll move. Know what I mean? But it won't be that easy. Basically, it's a crap test. I've decided to not live in limbo anymore. If she decided to come back, then there are things she'll have to do. If not, then she doesn't. Because we have a son, we'll always have contact, and it's in his best interest that I act like an adult even if she isn't. As well, and as my therapist has said, I have an opportunity for growth. I should take advantage of it. Become a better person. It could only help me, and she'll either see it or somebody else will. I'm not going to stop something from happening with someone else, but I'm not actively seeking it either. I'm starting to enjoy some of the quiet time I have to become a better person. At the end of the day, do I think we'll get back together? I'd say 75% chance. But so long as they're in contact, 0% chance. And I can't control that, just myself. So that's what I'll worry about from here on out. People think I should just ditch her. However, every situation is different. Being a child of divorce, I resent my mother for her ending the marriage to my dad. I don't know the whole story, but I know her history since, and it's not well. Meanwhile, my dad is married and happy. My mom also ended their marriage in her early 30s and intact, maybe been cheating. At the time, I was the only kid I knew whose parents were divorced, and that happened right around puberty. Does this affect my decision? Yes, and if I can keep my son from dealing with what I did, I will. My wife has said that if she came back to the marriage, she would be unhappy. Yet she tried to schedule things for us to do, and in her words, she likes doing them. That said, she's also said when I'm not around she misses me, but when I am, she gets angry. It's all hogwash and her rewriting the history. I know her better than that, even if she's acting like an alien has taken over her body. That said, the other man has learned a few tricks too about her and how to manipulate her so she keeps coming back. Like after a fight, not communicating with her for a couple of days. My wife can't stand it and it works. The reality is the OM put in all the effort in the beginning and he's been coasting ever since. It's been a low risk, high reward situation for him till now. Again, if she comes back and does the heavy lifting, we can make it work. If she doesn't, I'm cool too. All the learning and healing I've done for myself works either way. Cause I'm awesome. I know what lead her down the slippery slope. I've heard her reasoning for why she got caught up in the affair, and 50% of that reason is the other man. He went after my wife. When he realized our marriage was vulnerable, he tailored his conversations toward how bad I am and how good he is. I found this out during my wife's breakups, moments of clarity. He even gave her the "if I was your boyfriend" speech, as well as ex told me of how much he would talk about her before they broke up. I believe my wife when she says she didn't mean to get into the affair. She didn't actively seek it out. She was weak and has crappy boundaries, and he took advantage of it. Once she became emotionally involved, he let up on the gas. He played her well, I'll give him that. The fog has done all the rest. I can even pinpoint when our marriage started the downturn. Before that, we were very much in love. She just has no perspective on life, on how a new son and new house was going to affect our marriage. But no, we know, if we were to reconcile it would defiantly be different. Couple of things. My wife has never been that smart. She's rather naive. My therapist had a word for it. Emotional immaturity, I think, or emotionally uneducated. She is actually really easy to manipulate, because she uses her feelings more than logic. I've known it all these years and didn't use it that much. There were a few times I did, but never felt good about it. Also, bought 3 new suits and such at Christmas time. A gift to myself. I am moving on very slowly in my own way. On the flip side of that, everything I've read has said most affairs don't last more than 2 years. In my wife's case, he's broken up with her once, and she's broken up with him 5 times. Each time waiting longer to get back together with him. Her therapist as well as mine has said it's because she has trouble breaking off these kinds of connections emotionally. Logically, she sees it, and as her therapist has said, she's gone from seeing red flags to fireworks. As well, I think she's put herself in a pickle with it being work-related. For all of us, logically, we would say she should just transfer or find a new job. Heck, if she wanted to, she could force him to transfer when it's all said and done. I personally think they should both be transferred and her company should wipe their hands of the situation. But at the same time would love to see him gone because he's faced 0 consequences from this whole situation. His manager defends him no matter what and it makes him seem invincible. But she really doesn't want to leave her store, so that inhibits her decisions. Not making excuses, I just know how she thinks. As for this whole epididymitis thing, the ex told me he got it in early 2020, well before the affair started. That the doctor said it was from lack of release, that soldiers get it from time to time. I don't buy that either. Anyway, they put him on powerful antibiotics. Him and his wife were already kind of dried up in terms of bonding. So they didn't do anything while he was on meds. So, she never got anything and has been tested since then. It was possible for the condition to come and go and be the end of it. It's basically a male urinary tract infection. My wife, since being with him, has had several tract or bladder infections. She's been on antibiotics every time to treat it. And oddly enough, she had another one 4 days before I brought this up. She has been since tested and came up negative. The most likely reason she keeps getting the infections, because she doesn't finish her antibiotics all the way through, and the fact that he's rather large, he messes with her a bit, which may lead to bacterial infection, as well as pressure on her bladder. I know, way too much info, but that's what my curiosity gets me. The thing that gets me is, the ex wasn't at the doctor's office when he got examined, so he could have lied about it. Then he got angry when he knew that I found out and tried to say it was none of my business. However, we know that I have every right to know all things considered. But the thing is, I'm in his head, and he fears me. It's already been shown that I'm far smarter than he can ever hope to be. He knows that not only am I well researched, but also his ex will tell me everything. He also knows that if he's hiding anything else, I could find out. Like, how did he epididymitis in the first place? The more than likely scenario: he cheated on her before. Him and his ex have an odd history. She was 29, he was 19 when they started dating. He was her first partner, and she says that she was his. But now it's possible not his only. So that's the whole thing with the epididymitis. I'm the only one who hasn't been tested, and that's because I just haven't had time to get to a doctor. I have a checkup next month and we'll do it then. Though I also had a checkup last April around my birthday, and they found nothing, except I'm pre-diabetic and was thought to have an enlarged heart. Now, as for the moving on and dating thing, I did go out last night with a friend, talked to a few people, but nothing happened. Got messed up by drinking a little too much of this beer called Racer 5, which odd cause I can pack away a 6-pack of regular beer no prob, but this stuff messed me up. Anyway, we walked back to my friend's house and he went inside and I passed out in my car hoping to wake up in an hour to drive home. Well, apparently, my friend's girlfriend, who also work with my wife and are my spies, came out and saw me passed out and texted my wife. I started getting a slew of texts worried about me, asking if I wanted to drive over about 10 blocks from where I was parked and spend the night, how I should just sleep there or call a cab, but not to do anything stupid, that she was scared for me, how she was working on getting her head out of her ass, how her and my son wouldn't know what they'd do if they lost me, and a few other things. I guess I texted her back and told her I was fine and that I wouldn't do anything stupid, and was able to drive home around 4 in the morning and got home safe. I've basically been recovering the whole day, but it was nice to get out. Somebody made the suggestion on those days I drop off to dress nicer and not explain myself, something I already have in the works. As well, yesterday daytime I took my kid to the zoo. He had so much fun and was pointing out the animals and taking me to the exhibits. When we left, he said maybe next time mommy can come with us. I know not everybody agrees with what I do, and some people don't see my situation as salvageable, and it might not be, and I have to face the facts that I have to start moving forward, regardless, and that's not really a bad thing. I'm not completely holding out that we may reconcile. But when my son says that, that's why I leave the door ajar to give the opportunity for it to happen. If she's willing to do the work and follow the foundation I have in mind for reconciliation, because he deserves a whole family. Some people say that I'm teaching him something negative by that, and I see that point of view. But I also think I can teach him how to go through adversity, how to handle bad situations with dignity, and how to show compassion and to look at the bigger picture, as well as how to fight for your family. Also, if I get to the OM somehow, I can teach him about how you don't mess with a man's family. I only approach the problem of her urinary tract infections from a clinical point of view, why she's had so many more since dating this crap. There is a bit of disconnect when I start trying to figure things out. Because, like everyone else, when you find out your spouse is having an affair, you want answers. I've gotten some from her mom, when they talk, and our friends. I'm very well aware how some part of her gets excited by this. Again, her main reason for being with this guy is because he makes her feel special. So, anything that stokes that emotional fire is ultimately good for her. My approach has to not contact her unless necessary. When I do drop-offs, I try to stay somewhat cold, and most defiantly calm. And we've, myself and her family, been trying to show her the consequences of her actions. She tries to get me to do stuff for her when I drop off my son, or to plan family time together. As much as it hurts, I've had to decline a lot. People may think I get off on this or enjoy it. I don't. Would I love to go into that store and beat him within an inch of his life for all to see? Hell yeah. Would I like to go off on my wife and leave her in a pool of her own emotional sludge? Absolutely. But the law protects him, and if I become emotionally abusive crap, that can use against me. So, my best bet is to keep quiet and bide my time. my main concern has to and has. As for my son, so I have to be very conscious how I act when he's around. As for my self-esteem, when this whole thing started, I was in the red, but have battled back. I'm nowhere where I was before this, but I am better and stronger. Here's the thing about going out and hanging out with women or finding a new girl. It takes a bit of confidence to do so. And as anybody knows, an event like this rips it away from you. You have to build it back up. For some people, it's quick, others it's a lot longer. Without confidence, women don't want to be around you. Period. And believe me, I'm starting to get to that point. The other kicker about that is that I have my son 5 nights a week. So actually, getting out is difficult. And all my friends, married. So, the social network is a little thin. But I try to chat women up when I'm out running mundane errands. I take advantage of what I can. It might not seem like it in my posts, but there have been changes, small and incremental as they are. But the first change is my mindset. And like I said above, with confidence, it takes time. I'm not one of those guys who can flick it on and off like a switch. I can just say screw it and move on like others who are apparently better than me. I've been with my wife for 17 years. It's just not that easy. But I'm getting there. However, I will take exception to the kind of father I am. My job has to lessen the impact this has had on my son. We've maintained a routine similar to what IT was like before all this happened. This came at the advice of multiple psychologists and counselors. It hasn't been easy to watch him cry when he just wants mommy to come back home, or when he asks if she can go to the zoo with us next time, and I have to tell him no. I may not be father of the year, but I'm doing the best for my son, including trying to keep some sort of stability amongst all this chaos. People might not agree with the way I handle my wife, fine. But when it comes to how I deal with my son, he has quite the advantage that I didn't have when my parents got divorced. And he is what matters most. I work with what I got. I may make some mistakes, and I may be stubborn, and it may take a while to grow and heal. But the kind of father I am, I will take exception to. I am trying to move on. I'm sorry it's not as fast as some people would like. There have been times when she broke up with him, times when she seemed adamant to move on, even having HR involved at her work. I'm not saying I would have gotten back together with her then, but I am saying that if she put for the heavy lifting, then there could be a chance if she wanted to come back. But because there is a son involved, whose dad had been the child of divorce, my perspective is a little different than just dump the person and move on. Nobody wants to believe that I'm taking steps, then fine. But I am. But they aren't as immediate and grandiose as people seem to require. To even get back out there, to be with another woman, takes some emotional energy that I can't muster up as easily as some. Sorry, does my wife use the fact that we have a son as a way to get to me and or come back to the marriage? Yes, if there is a chance at reconciliation, I will consider it. But that is based on the same basic premise that everybody seems to state in order for reconciliation to happen. No contact, transparency, honesty, openness. I realize I have no control over what happens. That the only thing I have control over is me. Everybody seems to think that I'm the same as I was on D-Day. But I know that I'm not. I know there have been changes. I know that I am already starting to move on, flirting a little with women here and there. But it's also just not that easy. Again, I have my son 5 nights a week, on top of the other things that make it hard to meet women. That said, I'm not exactly 100% confident in myself. Nor am I emotionally available to even want to be in another relationship. Hell, that's the last thing I need at this point. Not only that, I haven't dated anybody else in 17 years. I just can't get right back up on the saddle, you know. For all intents and purposes, we are heading our separate ways. I'm selling the house and getting my own place, trying to do my own things. But our son is still the main priority, and there are times when contact is unavoidable. We keep a normal as possible routine for him, so he gets to see both of us as much as possible. As well, everybody acts like my wife is some viscous harpy intent on destroying all that comes in her path. That's not the case. I'm not saying she's perfect, obviously, but she's not one of those who is looking to just up and run away with the other man and start a new life with the other man. If she was, she would have done it already. And as I mentioned, she's broken up with him 5 times, all of her own accord, and with nobody else pressuring her. The other man knows exactly how to push her buttons to bring her back into the fold. The old ignoring trick, which has always worked really well. She's usually a good person who had a complete lack of boundaries. A good person who has made some horrendous decisions. A good person who's insanely naive. Good person who went down that slippery slope, and by the time she realized what was going on, her emotions were all involved. I'm not saying that what she's doing isn't wrong, and I'm not trying to defend her. Her actions speak plenty, but I also take the whole view of who she is. At the beginning of the affair and for those first 6 months, she was the alien who possessed my wife kind of person. As my therapist said, right now, she's a different person, totally self-absorbed. But I also know the woman I married is in there somewhere. And if she comes out of it and wants to work on it, again, I'll give it consideration, based off what she's willing to do. But until then, if I find someone, or get me a nice situation, I sure as heck won't be saying no. Comment: your wife is not one of these psycho-bipolar wives that are hell-bent on destroying their ex-husbands. In actuality, that would have been better for you. You would have no problem moving on. It does not make it any better for you that she is nice and cares for you, on a very, very superficial level. Her emotional maturity, or lack of it, does not make it any better for you. It is like you saying, she is not finishing me intentionally, so I wouldn't mind her finish me by accident. You need to stop considering her your friend. She is poisonous to you, your self-esteem and your own improvement. I mean, with people like her, you won't even need enemies. OP responds: ironically enough, everybody tells me to move on, that she'll notice. I get that I'm not doing it as fast or as immediate as everybody would like, but I am. My mother-in-law called me just a few ago to let me know some stuff. Wife tells her mom things, mom tells me things, and she doesn't know it. Anyway, I listed my house yesterday, because I had to be there for some showings. I didn't have time to pick up my son. 3 yesterday, 3 plus today, so my wife had to drop him off. Her and my mother-in-law, got there a little before me, so that they could make my son dinner. Again, because of time. From what she told me, my wife was shocked to see how the house was made ready for sale. That things were taken off walls, and stuff was started to be packed up. She knew I was going to do it, and that I am looking for a place, but it hit her right in the face. She also knows that I've been doing it all by myself, unlike the other man, who has his mommy do everything for him. She then saw dinner that I had prepared for me, stupid South Beach diet, as well as a menu plan for the rest of the week on the fridge with the South Beach book nearby. My mother-in-law basically said that my wife became very angry but scared at the same time. All those things hit her at once, as well as a few other things. I've told her I don't need her help for anything. I have said as much that I am moving on in my own way, and a lot of it starts with getting my own place. She's now starting to see it, and she knows what it means. Without the house, it's one less thing she can load over me since it's still in both our names. Also, about the OM being alpha. It may be true he played that to his advantage in the beginning, him being a supervisor and all. But she learned that it was just an image he puts up at work. She's confided in her friend, who's also mine and the girlfriend of who I went out drinking with Seth, just how much of a whiny little baby he is. And this isn't the first time I'm hearing this. His ex, who I've become good friends with, has let me know that in their relationship he had his moments where he played the good husband, father. But she was too independent for him. When they fought, she'd just walk away and leave him to pout like the little mommy's boy he is. I get that same feeling from the texts I was able to get last year. He would often say sorry for being so emo or thanks for letting me get that out, or my favorite, I needed to get that off my chest. I'm sorry if I got too teary-eyed. Seriously, he said these things. Listen, I know I became a whiny, clingy little baby in the beginning, and in reality, that's not who I am. I usually have my crap together. But as we've learned, affairs can do that, and it takes a while to heal from the damage. I'm listening. I get what everybody's saying. It just moves at its own pace. As much as I try to interact with other women, they can smell needy or clingy from a mile away. They know when somebody they're dealing with isn't confident with themselves, and we know how much confidence is attractive. The fact is, it isn't easy for me to just flip it on and off like a switch, like it may be for others. And I've said it before, I take my son into heavy consideration. I'm not hiding behind him. I just remember what it was like when my parents got divorced. It was mean and nasty. They fought over every little thing, to the point where they hated each other. And my mom was immensely selfish during that whole process. The divorce ducked me up, and I never want to see my son go through that or see his parents get to that level. I've been tremendously snarky and cutting with my wife most of the time when I see her, to the point where we get into fights. I've had to learn to hold my tongue, but I'd rather let my wife go than see my son go through what I did. I know how everybody says she's poison, even if she herself doesn't consciously know what she's doing, even if all she's doing is following her feelings. I get it, but certain things just don't happen overnight. As our schedule stands, our son sees both his parents almost every day. There's really no couple of days here, couple of days there. It's also because we can't afford that kind of childcare. So, she'll be with him till I get off work and pick him up or whatever. And since she works at 4 in the morning, she cannot have him over except on her days off. I keep out discussions brief and about our son, and have brought up moving forward with the separation. I want to go through mediation and avoid the courts. Everything is in place money and schedule-wise. The paperwork just needs to be done. My wife, she's nice, real nice, almost too nice for her own good. Her manager has pointed this out, that she's just too casual around people. And some can misconstrue that as something else. She's not flirtatious. She's more a shucks kind of girl who doesn't make too much makeup. She's got an incredible rack but doesn't wear much to accentuate it. But that naiveness is often a flaw as well. When we broke up some time ago, before we got married, she dated this guy. He was very similar to the other man. He tells her what she wanted to hear, and at the beginning seemed one way, romantic and involved with her. Found out he was manipulating her, and in fact, played her the whole time. He was cheating on her, Of course the fact that he had 3 kids with 2 diff women should have been a red flag too. He then played the same ignoring games, and she kept going back for more. This guy was the typical bad boy, except he became both physical and emotionally abusive, and she kept going back to him even though she would be beaten. He was eventually get locked up and she was able to come out of it. Shortly after we got back together and the rest is history. And for the record, I saw a few girls during that time, but nothing too serious. My wife has issues. A lot of stems from her kind of being abandoned by her dad, and her fear of that. A lot of how she acts now is eerily like how she acted back then. Anyway, people are right though, I need to continue to shut up. Something I've gotten better at and keep it cool. The thing is I'm excited to move out of this house and get my own place. I haven't hid that fact. It kind of helps me move on in its own way. So, it really won't take much convincing on my part, which is what I've been trying to relay. I've been a bit slow on the uptake, but things are changing. This is not the first time she has chosen the wrong person. Yeah, she is not the best judge of character and not too worldly wise. I have to say she generally has a good head on her shoulders, but she was a little sheltered. I love my mother-in-law, but she did her no favors by not being a better teacher to her about people and the way the world is. Unlike my mom who was always no bull crap. But if you're implying cheating, no, we were broken up at the time. We had kind of drifted apart. She moved out and later started a relationship with him. He was a smooth talker too, but a heavy drinker. Oddly enough, the other man is quite the drinker too. I found out that he lost a bunch of weight at the beginning of the affair. Divorce papers being served, but has put on 30 pounds and has a bit of a gut. Also, when he used to go over to her house, he'd bring alcohol. This guy pulled the same game, told her what she wanted to hear, found out about our relationship and just used that. Also, though, unlike the other man, he had other women after him. Like I said, he was a player, and my wife thought that it made her feel special that he picked her and B was the bad boy, so she thought she could change him. All typical stuff for a girl in her mid-20s. Unfortunately, my wife's biggest weakness is her self-esteem, even more so since she put on weight after the baby. Oddly enough, right before we broke up, she had also put on a decent amount of weight. She has never been comfortable with herself despite me telling her how beautiful I thought she was. Though I did always worry about her weight, it was for health reasons since I have high blood pressure. I am just more of a health-based kind of guy. My wife has issues and they basically stem from her father leaving and her low self-esteem. She is also fairly predictable. I have seen this before in her. Her attitude with the other man is similar how she was when she was with the jerk. Only when that event had passed did she realize exactly what had happened. But I know that she views the affair as different, simply because the other man has not beaten her yet. But from the outside looking in, we see similar things. And it is not just me. She has friends that were around for that situation who have tried talking to her. We all know how the mindset gets for affairs. So, logic just doesn't get through. As everybody has stated, I must hit her emotionally. And with the moving and house selling thing, the diet and working out, it is all coming to fruition. My contact has lessened and I know everybody says just ignore her. It is not quite that easy, but I am not picking up the phone to call her, unless it's about our son, and if I can limit it to texts. I do. She doesn't do email. I keep convos brief and to the point, if I pick up at all. So, this stuff is starting to happen. I know my wife well. The only thing I did not know is how poor her boundaries were or how easily she could get into something like this. That was my fault for being dumb about thinking that marriage would protect a relationship. The rules do not change just because you put a ring on it. I've defiantly learned a lot. And if reconciliation were to ever happen, you can bet things would change. I went to pick up my son tonight. Well, he pretty much lost his crap. He thought he was going to spend the night at mommy's, but because she must wake up at 4, there would be nobody to watch him. As he broke down, I just stood there, silent. I watched her try to calm and console him. Eventually he calmed down. I didn't say too much, but I did 2 things. I reminded her of something he said last year. He said if this affected my son, that he would back off. He didn't, but just proved what a great honest guy he is. The second thing I said was to text him when I leave, because I know she will, and tell him he was wrong. Our son isn't adapting at all. I know he told her that, as he also told his ex-wife that their 2 kids would adapt as well. I said it quietly, but with a low growl, then took my son and left. But I could see the tears in her eyes as I left, from both her son's behavior and the fact that she knew I was right. I have seen changes in her, but I am also smart enough to know when the right time to say or do things. Months ago, even trained from my son couldn't pull her away. I knew if he couldn't, I wouldn't be able to. They say that's a common thing with people in affairs. As well, no contact with her, obviously, would be impossible. My comment, final ending coming in a few hours. You think OP will finally detach, or he will run right back into her. See you in the final ending. I am working on it as you guys are watching this.